Is it working?
Hello. Yeah. Great. I was seeing everyone else, but I couldn't see your name coming up. Hello. Well, hello and welcome. And you are in New York at the moment, isn't it, Claire?
Yes, I am in a very sleepy city. Well, it's starting to get busier now. The streets are starting to get more people, but it's very strange, like everywhere.
What time is at the moment exactly? What time is in New York right now?
It's 10 a.m. in the morning, so that's time for my morning coffee.
Okay, brilliant. So welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today. Yes, I'm just really amazed that you are I'm talking with you because I love your photography and I love your courage, and I think your experience as a photojournalist is just like mind-blowing to me. But yeah, can I ask you, well, obviously, one of the main things we would like to ask you today is your experiences in particular on the front line. So yeah, how did you start? How did you end up the first time, let's say, working on the front line as a photojournalist?
Well, I guess it was, I had quite a long journey leading up to that. I started actually my photojournalism career in Palestine, in the West Bank, and I sort of ended up there kind of by accident. I got as part of a holiday. At the end of a holiday, I was couch surfing in the West Bank, and I met some very interesting people. I mean, I knew I wanted to do stories there. But the first time I visited was vacation. Then I went back and I spent some more time, and I started doing photo essays there. And I was very lucky early in my career that I reached out to a photographer in Wales called Jason Tanner, and I'd seen his work and I loved it, and I knew that I wanted to do something like that. And ever since, he's been mentoring me basically, and has been just an enormous help. He guided me a lot, and during those days in Palestine, he was sort of critiquing my work and helping me connect with editors, which is so difficult, and that was such a learning curve. But anyway, from Palestine, I then progressed and I spent some time in Europe, in the Jungle Calais camp, and in Lesbos in Greece. And there I started meeting a lot of Kurdish Iraqi families who'd fled ISIS in 2014. And I think that must have been the seed that was planted that made me want to go to Iraq, because it was just a case of one day I booked a ticket to go to Erbil, and I knew that Erbil was relatively safe city. It hadn't been affected too badly by ISIS. And so I went in December 2016 for the first time. And I was lucky again. I think I've had a lot of luck, really. I just posted on Facebook looking for accommodation in Erbil, and I ended up in a house with 10 of some of the most amazing frontline reporters. And so they were very happy to share their knowledge with me, and some of them took me under their wing and took me to the front line. So that was like my introduction, I guess. But originally I went to Iraq just to do some humanitarian stories. I didn't anticipate going to the front line at all. I just wanted to go to camps and focus on the humanitarian crisis. But that wasn't how it ended up working out, and I went quite quickly to the front line, which was very interesting.
Would you say, like, when you went the first time, did you go just as a personal project, or was it, or were you assigned to go there? And what was your, in your mind, what were like going on? very, like this fast-pacing thoughts about, like putting yourself at risk, and how did you feel about? Were you actually assigned, or did you go?
I throughout my time in Iraq during the war, anyway, I was never assigned. It was all freelance work that I sold later on. A lot of it I failed to sell. It's a strange situation, because of course we have to ask ourselves what motivates us to go. And not only is there a great risk, but there's also a financial burden of paying a fixer to go to these places without knowing that you'll ever recover those costs. So, I mean, the motivation is, I guess, curiosity and wanting to understand. And I honestly couldn't tell you really why I wanted to go, but I always felt drawn to that kind of work. And actually, the first time I went to the front line was unforgettable and career defining in some ways, because those were the best pictures I think I got throughout the whole time. But I realized that it really was exactly what I wanted to do. I mean, of course, we'd all prefer that there weren't any of these conflicts to cover anyway in the first place, but I don't know, I'm very drawn to it.
Did you feel that, I mean, it's quite interesting for me, and I guess for everyone watching as well, as a freelancer, did you feel that you had much more freedom on the choice of subjects that you were that you were covering?
Yes.
But at the same time, yeah, it would be interesting to find out from you, from your experience, what the freedoms were and what the limitations were within that. Or were there any limitations, or how do you feel? Yeah.
So that's one of the things I love about being a freelancer, is that we do have enormous freedom. We only have ourselves to rely on, really. We can do any stories and go anywhere to cover whatever we want. So the freedom is great. And time, I guess. It's like we can spend more time on one specific story. Perhaps, like the wire reporters and staff reporters might have a deadline. They might have to produce a lot of stories, whereas I felt like I was very lucky that I was able to spend the time to try my best to produce good work and understand the context of what was going on. The limitations are quite profound as well, mostly in the sense that I guess it's very costly. In an active war zone, you have to pay a fixer. There wasn't any way, at least in the beginning, but that became unsustainable for me, because the fixers are very expensive. They're the ones that keep you safe. They get you to the place where you can have access to the front line. They take an alternative way, because for staff reporters, those costs are covered. They have security measures in place. They have very often security teams, whereas we don't have that support surrounding us. So we have to depend on each other in some ways. So the freelance community was quite tight. I felt like we were all very close.
That's nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it was really special. So we all basically, the way it worked was we all lived in Erbil, which is a very nice city. I mean, I recommend everybody to visit Erbil. It's beautiful. Very lovely people, great Kurdish culture. My dad came to visit. He loved it. And it's just an hour away from Mosul. So this conflict was unique in the sense that we could have a very comfortable life in Erbil and then just be an hour or 2 hours with checkpoints away from the front line. But then, of course, I was very, very lucky towards the end of the offensive, because I started to realize quite quickly that paying a fixer and just going to the front line wasn't giving me the perspective that I was really looking for. Going in for a day and then going back out. I don't know. It was very much focused on the military offensive, which is of course very important, but it's not the whole picture. And so I fought for weeks and weeks to try and persuade the founder of a medical NGO, Pete Reed. He founded a medical NGO called Global Response Management. And I knew that they had medics working on the front line, or just right behind the front line. And so I wanted to embed with them, but I think he had a lot of journalist requests. So I wasn't getting a firm answer until finally it worked, and he took me, and that was absolutely life-changing. I was in awe of the work of the medics, to say the least. There were some female medics from Australia and from America, and they just worked with such composure and confidence and professionalism in, you know, the most demanding conditions. There were times when the field clinic was so crazy, like there were mass casualties, there were people all over the floor with horrific injuries, there weren't enough beds, there weren't enough medics, and I would have to go outside to just have a bit of air because it was quite overwhelming, and they just carried on like flawlessly. It was incredible. I don't really know how to explain it. My words can't do them justice. They were incredible.
Wow, yeah. I must have been also looking at an experience, traumatic, very dramatic, scenes day in and day out must have had some effect on you.
Yes, definitely. I mean, it's of course it's hard to see those things, but I just try to remember that it was my choice to be there, and that I'm very lucky and very privileged that it wasn't my reality. You know, I was able to leave. At the end of the day, if I needed to leave, I could leave. So I tried to focus on that, and I also tried to focus on the incredible strength, you know, and the humanity, and the people who survived, and the people who helped them survive, of course. So I just try to remember that. But on the other side, I'm quite an emotional person. I wear my heart on my sleeve, as they say. And so I felt like at the time, I didn't try to hide my feelings. You know, I was able to confront them because I was with the medics, who were extremely supportive. I'm not sure I would have been able to do that without that support, because I was by myself. I basically stayed in Mosul. Like, we were embedded with Iraqi special forces, and I was very lucky that the medics, we became like a support network, and we talked about things, and I think that really helped, rather than trying to, you know, hide those feelings and not realize that this is like a really intense time. It's emotional. It's normal to feel emotional. There were times when mothers were crying over the bodies of their dead children, and of course, you know, you can't hide your tears. I think it is hard not to be upset in those moments. And actually, I had the great honor of meeting one of the greatest photographers, photography legend in Mosul during that time. And oh my gosh, do you know a photographer called Carol Guzzi? She is she's the only, I believe she's the only photojournalist to have ever won 4 Pulitzer Prizes. And
wow.
Yeah, you must Google her. She's incredible. This lady is. She
definitely
is such an inspiration. And we met during a very intense day of fighting. People were fleeing the front line, and as they were coming out, they were being shot by ISIS snipers, and they were arriving in the field clinic with horrific injuries. And Carol Guzzi had just followed or helped one young guy escape. And I was so impressed by her compassion. You know, she showed so much humanity, and I don't know, she was just an incredible person and really an inspiration. I had no idea who she was at the time, but yeah, it was good.
Wow. And can I just also ask you, just like as a woman, you know, do you feel that you had access, or different access?
Yes.
I'm just thinking that perhaps you might have had unprecedented access because you are a woman.
Yes, I would say that actually in that environment, being a woman was an advantage, because it allowed me to photograph and interact with women in a more intimate way than would be acceptable for men. so yeah, that was really special, because I was able to, I mean, of course I'm always drawn to spend more time speaking with women anyway, and in terms of access, I mean, yes, you know, when you're in Iraq during that time, during the offensive, there were a lot of checkpoints, and sometimes it helps to smile at the soldiers, but I mean, I think that works for men and women. But I did hear rumors floating in Erbil that some journalists were critical of me for being relatively inexperienced and getting better access than some, because I would smile at the soldiers. I mean, you know, if it's that easy, give it a go. Oh dear, but no, yeah, in terms of access to female stories, it's definitely, and I actually got a lot of assignments after the war ended. You know, I stayed on in Iraq for another 2 years, and then I did get quite a lot of assignments, I think, just because I'm a woman. You know, and perhaps that's not fair, but I mean, it's still a male-dominated industry, so I'll take what I can get.
Yeah. How did it go? How did it work out on the actual front line by being a woman? How was that? Was there any you know, like protective kind of attitude towards you, or how was it?
Yeah, you're right. I felt very protected by the soldiers. Yeah, I think they, you know, in Iraq, they're very respectful to women. And I always felt like the soldiers were incredibly respectful and protective. And so, yeah, working on but then that can have a counter effect. So sometimes you have to persuade them more to let you go forward, you know, because they want you to stay back, to be extra safe. But I mean, you know, once I told them that I really, really want to go, you know, to the front line, then they would happily take me. Yeah, it was, but of course you have to have the right gear, and actually wearing full body armor at that time, it was June and July, and it was extremely hot.
I was gonna say, it must have been. And how did you manage with that and the gear? What kind of equipment were you using on like photography equipment? Were you limited with the
oh my gosh,
with having to have the armor? It was as well.
Well, I mean, there are times when I remember what I must have looked like, and I cringe, because I remember like the first day going to the front line with a helmet that was too big for me, bouncing all over my head, and a vest that was also too big, and then like my first aid kit wrapped around, attached to my arm, and then my 2 big cameras. And then this was that time when I went to the front line for the first time. I think that was the only time I ever had to run. You know, we had to run from house to house, and everything was bouncing, like cameras were going everywhere. It wasn't very elegant. But I had 2 cameras, 2 lenses.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, so it must be like, and I guess all your on the side your horse riding training and must have come to fruition then. Being very fit.
It did, absolutely. I often think that, you know, like my background in horse riding definitely helped.
Yeah, that brings me a little bit back to to now. What are you up to now, Claire? What are your immediate plans, and what are you doing right now?
So I moved to New York in February with my partner. So I left Iraq last June full time. I went back a few times since, and now I guess I'm in between assignments. Obviously, nobody's traveling at the moment, so I'm building a new website, and I'm taking a slightly new direction. I'll never stop doing photojournalism. I just want to add to that and do some different things. So I'm doing some fine art photography as well. So my new website will showcase some of that as well as the photojournalism work. And I guess besides that, just, you know, looking for new projects, new assignments that will hopefully be able to start up later this year.
Well, sounds good.
Yes.
Well, yeah, thank you for today. It's really like a carrelade, you know, amazing, you know, like amazing experiences to hear. And of course, we're going to hear much more because you're going to join us on the photojournalism night, so
Yes.
where we're going to see your work.
Yes.
So if any, of course, everybody, yes, on the 16th June at 6:30, we will be on Zoom with Claire and Felipe Paiva, and also with Encardi Pidado. I hope I pronounce it right. Amazing, all three of you are really amazing photojournalists. In the meantime, everyone can please do get in touch with Claire, if you have more questions. Obviously, we cannot cover in 15 minutes everything, but yes, Claire, do you want to say a little bit about your, like maybe your hashtags and all that? Can you tell?
Gosh, I'm terrible with social media. This is something I'm working on. I hope to improve. So my Instagram, which I will start to be more active in soon, I promise. But it's just Claire _Thomas _photography. And my website clairethomasphotography.com. And I do have Twitter as well, which I will be more active on soon. That's SCT Photographer. So I'm trying to learn how to do social media in a better way than what I'm doing now. I'm working on it.
Actually, someone just posted here a comment saying, after the virus finished in my country, I will go to find the girl you treated her, and you took a picture with her. Do you know?
I think so. Ali Bazooka, yes, I remember Ali Bazooka. He
was
very kind, very funny character, Iraqi Special Forces soldier.
Great. So he sent you a message here. Brilliant. Maybe you can connect later.
Yes, definitely. Definitely. I will.
Yeah, fantastic. Okay, so brilliant. Thank you, Claire. This is amazing to have you here. It's really great. And I'm really looking forward on the 16th to join you on and see more of your stories around your pictures and your work. Thank you, Claire.
Looking forward to it.
Have a great day. Well, for your full day. See you all. And see you. Okay, thank you. Bye. 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 Bye.